Verstappen emphatically ended his four-mount victory drought by winning the Italian Grand Prix at a canter as Lando Norris eventually trimmed Oscar Piastri's world title lead after a late swap between McLaren drivers. Winning for the first time since May's Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix and F1's last visit to Italy is just his third victory of 2025. Verstappen prevailed after coming out on top in a thrilling duel with Norris over the race's first four laps. This start saw the pole sitter cut the first chicane as the two went wheel-to-wheel offline, with Verstappen ceding the lead to Norris, only to give it back on advice from his crew. But after repassing his British rival at the start of lap 4, Verstappen checked out at the front to the surprising effect ahead of McLaren cars that had won all but three of the season's races up to Sunday. Norris still looked firmly on course for second to score back 3 points on Piastri thereafter, a week after his costly requirement in Zandvoort, but briefly dropped to third when the Australian, after a slow pit stop, with 7 laps to go. But after McLaren, on the advice of Norris, had given third place Piastri, who enjoyed a swift trouble-free stop a lap before the earlier service in order to ward off any threat from Leclerc behind him, they asked the Aussie to give back the position to his teammate on fairness grounds. Piastri questioned their reasoning over the radio, but duly complied and Norris took second. It means Piastri's championship advantage is trimmed to 31 points with 8 Royal Grand Prix and 3 sprints still to go. Piastri had earlier had to fight his way back to third after losing his starting position during an early ding-dong with Leclerc, but the Ferrari challenge quickly faded on home ground thereafter, with Leclerc finishing a distant fourth ahead of George Russell. Lewis Hamilton made up ground to finish in 6th, but couldn't quite get past Russell. Alex Albon capped off a fine recovery after a disappointing qualifying to finish 7th ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto, who was promoted to 8th, and then ahead of Antonelli, who gained a 5-second time penalty for his driving erratically when early in battle with Albon. With Antonelli dropping to 9th, Isaac Hadjar impressed, and he got from the pit lane to a 10th place finish after his maiden podium in Zandvoort. But after a wheel-to-wheel drama of the early laps, the race settled down into a steady pattern, with neither of the McLarens really having the pace of Verstappen, and so with strategic cars to play, it ended as expected, requiring just one pit stop. The World Championship leaders pondered their final throw of the dice to tyre compound their rivals took when they did pit. Norris replied that it made sense if Verstappen went another way. Verstappen duly did when Red Bull pitted the race leader on lap 38 with 15 laps to go, with the more durable hard tyres fitted to the Dutchman's car, trying to leave their response as late as possible in case of a fortuitously timed safety car. It was a further 8 laps before McLaren stopped on their own. In its convention, an F1 team leading car is serviced first, but Norris suggested his team do Piastri first to stop an undercut. A swift 1.9 service saw him rejoin on soft tyres. Norris came a lap later, but he had a 5.9 second pit stop chuntering down the pit lane. Piastri was able to get ahead. McLaren then found themselves in an iffy scenario, but it didn't take long for their decision when Piastri was told to give the place back. Piastri did question it, but Stallard refused Hungary 2024, and that kind of led to Lando Norris being given pace back. Once back, Piastri briefly stayed in DRS, but in the end couldn't do it. But up front, for Max Verstappen, he kind of found it funny, saying just because he had a slow stop. Verstappen was told by his race engineer to stay focused, and in the end took the win by 19 seconds. And a rare victory these days, the first of the post-Christian Horner era, and you could tell how pumped Verstappen it was. Probably something that he's been missing for quite a long time now, with only his third win of the season. And before I go, let me run you through the classification from the race. Max Verstappen coming out on top. A great drive from Max. He was absolutely on fire here. And good to see him back at the top. Norris in second. I think he'll be disappointed not to take the win here. But obviously didn't really have the pace to. Still ground grain on Piastri. Piastri will probably be frustrated with the way it's happened. But in the end, it was a fair result. Leclerc fourth. I mean, best he could do. Ferrari's pace was really disappointing today. I think Russell will probably feel similar. Hamilton, his recovery is decent. I just question whether he could have gone on the softs at the end and maybe attack Russell. Who knows? Albon in 7th. Brilliant recovery from him. Bortoleto as well, probably would have wanted to finish 7th, but good job from him. Antonelli, I mean, it's a points finish, so it's not a disaster, but at the same time, I think he will see kind of missed opportunities here, that he could have maybe finished higher. With what went on with all the penalties and stuff like that. Hadjar intense, I mean, great recovery from him. Sainz in 11th, he'll be frustrated again, once again, to miss out on the points in another incident. Behrman 12th, another incident, and he's close to the race ban now, so probably a disappointing day for him. Tsunoda, I don't know what happened to him, but more disappointment for Tsunoda, especially when his teammates winning. And you just can't really justify performances like this, can you? Lawson in 14th, he'll be disappointed with that. It starts ahead of his teammate and didn't really make as much progress. Ocon 15th, didn't really have the pace of his teammate. Obviously that penalty didn't didn't help. And then the Alpines nowhere as expected. Lance Stroll way down there, and then Alonso and Hulkenberg. I feel quite sorry for both of them, especially Alonso, running the points. He just doesn't seem to have a lot of luck at the moment, does he, for poor old Fernando. And then Nico Hulkenberg as well, I'm not even going to start the race.